we're streaming. There we go. We are live, I think. I'm going to wait before I say anything. I was going to say I'm going to wait before I say anything interesting before I start, but I'm not sure that's happening anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Making sure that the audio is on before I do start rambling, though. Let's see. There we go. Okay, good. Audio's good. Oh, stop. Stop. I don't actually want to listen to me. It's bad enough you guys have to listen to me. Okay. Thanks for joining tonight. We are working in, well, I say we, me. I'm working in water-soluble graphite. Wow, it's already off to a great start. This is the Faber Castell, what do they call these? I've got a set right here. The Graphite Aquarelle. I don't know how to say this. Maybe one of you guys do. I'm just going to go ahead and call them water-soluble graphite. But I love these so much. And these ones are actually really cool because they're fairly inexpensive. I think even last night when I looked at Amazon, they were under $10 for the whole pack with the cool little paintbrush. So if you've not played with these, I strongly recommend them. Ooh, good tip. Thank you. Press record. I almost forgot. So kind of love you right now for that. See, make sure I've got this set up because everything changed a bit. Yep, that is moving that over a bit. Oh, off screen. Readjust a little bit. I must have knocked the... Oh, you know what it is? This may end up being a problem tonight. I have a new... it's a boom mic stand that I use for holding my camera and, well, both cameras really. And this one is... My last one broke, and so I got another one, the exact same one. Well, this is a newer model, apparently, and it is not so stable. So, yeah, remind me, if this starts to droop tonight, let me know. I may have to readjust things because it doesn't want to stay. I mean, I can't really get this any tighter, and it's still, oh, it's a little tighter. I guess that's a lie then. But it's still wanting to slide. So let me know if I don't notice that it's sliding. And let's go ahead and move over here. Oops, hold on just a second. Let me situate these windows. My neighbors on the other side of my studio wall are apparently, I'm guessing it's a racing game. It sounds like there's a drag strip right next to my the studio all the time now. It's like, or it could be that they vacuum nonstop all night long every evening after they get off work. Also kind of sounds like that. So if you hear any weird sounds, it's probably whatever game my neighbors are playing. So the first thing I'm going to do, I have already started a base on this, and it's not nearly dark enough. I need to find, oh good, I do have an 8B. I'm going to go ahead and start layering over this. Now this is, with these pencils, it doesn't lift. It's not like watercolor where you're really going to lift anything off. It's closer to Inktense. It's not as permanent as Inktense, but kind of close. So you're not going to erase. I mean, if I take anywhere where I've already gone through, I'm not really lightening anything up. Nothing's changing. So you want to be careful as you're layering this that you do put this where you want it to go. And these are cool because you can get a looser, you can kind of see some of this watercolor sort of loose feel, or you can keep them very, very clean, which I've done before too. And yeah, the paper is Arches, but this one is the hot press. It is the photo I used in my thumbnail because the only other cold press I have is being used for the artwork. So I used the cold press in the thumbnail, which is a little confusing, but this one is the hot press. I haven't decided how much I like it. I definitely feel like I like the Fabriano Artistico better, but this one being in a watercolor block holds it shaped nicely, and I don't have to deal with any of that or taping it down. I'm really enjoying working in a block. I've actually never done that before, believe it or not. I always get the individual sheets, and I do have a bunch of individual sheets of this, both in the hot and the cold press, that I'll be using for bigger projects too to test out. But so far with this paper, it's a little bit more smooth than I prefer. It's not, the Fabriano Artistico, when you feel it, I mean, if you're not really familiar with it, it doesn't feel that different, but this one, or at least the old one, I don't know the new one, but this one is not, it's a little bit closer to vellum, it feels like it's super, super smooth. So I'm not in love with it. Yeah, Brittany said that when she bought it, the Arches was a bit too yellowy for her. Much prefers the Stonehenge Aqua 140-pound watercolor paper. You know what? I've not tried Stonehenge watercolor paper. I'm going to look into that too. But so far, the things that I'm loving so far on this, it works for graphite. I'm not that picky with graphite, honestly. I'm liking working in the block. This is just really nice. It stays put. And what you do to remove this, you just stick your palette knife in this little hole and cut around the edge to release it from the block, but you leave it in the block while you're painting. And I am enjoying that a lot more than I thought I would. So that's great. Again, it's a little bit smoother than I like, but we'll see. I'm going to do a test with watercolor pencil on this in the cold press too to see how much I like those. But I know what you mean, Brittany, about this feeling a little too yellowy. It's not as bright white as like the Fabriano Artistico extra white hot press watercolor I typically use. So all I'm going to do when I work on this, I can be fairly messy. It's actually going to blend all of my pencil strokes out. The thing is, I don't want to push hard. If you push really hard with anytime watercolor pencil, Inktense, any of those, when you push really hard with them, it makes it so that it doesn't blend out that great when you add water. So you want to make sure, just use a fairly light hand. I mean, when I say light hand, I don't mean, because I know some people will take that a little too literal and they push so lightly that nothing comes out. I want pigment to come off onto the paper. I need graphite on the paper, but I don't want so much of it, or you don't want to push really hard because that doesn't blend out as well. So I'm going to darken these up a bit before I start working on the flowers, and I actually want a lot of this to be much, much darker. So I'm just working in little ovals. I'm overlapping, but if I have little sketchy lines, it will blend out, so it's not a big deal. I don't have to do the teeny tiny little lines like I might normally with graphite in order to make sure everything is very smooth. I also don't really need to worry about the pencil being super sharp. Normally, when you want to make sure you don't get that grainy, gritty look with graphite, colored pencil, any of those, you want a super sharp pencil, because if it's not, it doesn't get in all the little nooks and crannies of the paper, and you can end up with just that grainy look. Here, this is going to dissolve completely, so I don't have to worry about that. I don't need to keep the pencil super sharp until I get into fine detail. Let's see. Neil Patel Art said, I recently purchased these pencils, so I'm really happy that you're working with them again. Can't wait to use them. They're so much fun. If you not use them, seriously, go get them out right now. They are, the first time I tried these, I bought them when I was at Hobby Lobby. I had a 40% coupon and picked them up there. And I went home and did a quick test, and it was one of those things where I was like, I'm glad no one is in the room right now, because I realized I had the biggest, stupidest, like, mouth hanging open grin. I was so like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So you will love, I'm assuming you'll love them. I can't imagine anyone not loving them. They're so much fun. Here we go. That fine art guy asked if I have any tips for recording voiceovers. I'm about to do that for my first video. When I first started, I wanted every little thing to be perfect. And so I would kind of work myself up, worrying about messing up, misspeaking, anything like that. And so it would, like, doing a voiceover for a 5-minute video would stress me out, because it would take me an hour to get everything right. Nope, start over. Nope, start over. Nope, do it again. And I realized quickly, it's honestly not that big of a deal. Like, things do not have to be perfect. I misspeak all the time. I just make fun of myself for it, or try to point it out when I do. Occasionally I'll be back editing and I'll listen to how I pronounce something, and I'm like, wow, I need to work on that word. That did not come out right. But don't do what I do. I don't think that you need to worry about everything being perfect. And I used to script everything too, so I was like, down to the minute, at this section I'm going to say this, at this section I'm going to say that. And it was way too much work for not being, like, I don't think it made the video any better. So I would say be a bit more casual would be my first tip. Don't stress yourself out about it. Just speak. Now, do try to avoid, and I keep catching myself doing it now. Watch on the voiceovers that you don't use too many filler words, the or and those type of things. Try to do that means you need to edit them out, then fine. And you're going to hear me do it a lot more in a live stream than you would on a video, because on a video I can go back and edit that. But that gets really annoying for people if you have too many of those. It's something that you want to work on. And the great thing is, if you tend to use those fillers, if you have a bad habit with that, the more that you edit your videos and the more you do the voiceovers, the more aware you're going to be that you're doing it, and you'll start not doing it, because every time you go to say it, you'll cringe, like, oh, I'm gonna have to go edit that now. So it's just a good habit to break those filler words. But yeah, I had to learn that it wasn't that big of a deal. I was putting too much pressure on myself, and I would stress out about it. And now I just kind of have fun and share what I would, the same as if I were teaching a class live. And that's going to include me misspeaking all the time. I mean, certain things I'll edit or fix if I really get to where I'm starting to stumble over my words too badly. But yeah, that would be my biggest tip. And then use a decent mic. the audio matters more with videos than the video, believe it or not. If you are like, there was one podcast I tried to listen to, and I don't remember, I think it was a business one. It may have been great advice. I couldn't get over it because it sounded like the woman was eating her microphone, like it was in her mouth as she was talking, and so you could hear like the saliva moving around. That, watch out for that sort of thing, because that's definitely going to turn people off much more than you misspeaking, that's for sure. So watch your audio levels. The other thing, when you do a voiceover, let's say if you do like I do on my videos where I start out talking, you know, doing the intro on camera, and then I move over to my computer to do the voiceover for the video itself, make sure to balance your audio levels. Make sure that one's not super quiet and the other one blows people's eardrums out. Try to get them, mess with those levels and get those to be as even as possible. I mean, they're not going to be perfect, but go for as close as you can. But make sure that audio is really good because, like I said, that is more important than video in most cases. If you've got bad audio, people can't watch it. If you've got bad video, they can deal with it. I mean, obviously, working with art, you do have to have decent video too, or it doesn't even have to be that good video though. I mean, I look back at my first video camera, and even though the quality wasn't the best, I can still share those videos as long as the audio is okay. Now, if the audio is bad, then I can't share it. That's not going to work out too well. Even now I'm catching myself saying too much. Or if you catch yourself saying, you know, that's another one that people will do. Every other word, you know, I know, stop saying it. So just be aware of that. And it's something that so many, I mean, again, even myself, so many of us do. We want to try to be aware of that. And it's funny, so much that I edit, I'll realize like the word kinda is one that I caught myself for about a month. I swear every other word out of my mouth was kinda. It's kinda this, it's kinda that. Just cut, that word didn't even need to be in the sentence at all. There was no need for it. And so I was fighting with myself. It took me a while to break that habit. I probably still do it on occasion, but be aware of that sort of thing. Whoops, scroll too far. Shocker, because that's what I do all the time. I wish that the chat did not do that. It would make this much easier. Just missed a bunch. Okay. Aiden said, the paper is really thick, which I love. That said, there's a lot of glue binding and it's not easy to take the page out without bending it. Any suggestions? Well, if it's a watercolor block that you're talking about, I may have missed the first part of the question, but if it's a block, then in this case, you would take a palette knife, never use a razor blade or an X-Acto knife because you will cut right through that paper, but take the palette knife and just go across the edges slowly. If it's a pad of paper, fold it. Usually there'll be a perforated line, and if you fold it backwards along that line, back and forth, use that to rip it out. Don't just rip or you'll rip the whole paper. But it depends on, I just apologize because I do think I missed the first part of your question there. Eric asked, what are some good techniques for drawing fur in colored pencil? Work in small sections would be my first tip. Little sections at a time. Don't, like right here, you can see I'm kind of working on the whole background at a time. When you're working on fur, I don't recommend doing something like that. Break it up into one small section and then work under the next section. If you go to it, it gets overwhelming. There's a lot of detail. So that's, you know, one square inch, 2 square inches at a time would be the way I would recommend. The other thing is, don't necessarily, unless you're working really, really huge, and even then I don't really recommend it, don't try to draw in each strand of fur. That's one thing. If you do that, what you'll end up having is fur that looks like plastic. If you want it to look like real fur, soft fur, you're going to want to overlap. Let each brush, I'm trying to see if I've got paper around here I can use. So here, we'll use this as an example. You don't want to sit and make every single line. It actually doesn't end up looking super realistic. Pull things into clumps. Let them overlap as needed. Get that softer look, and it's going to depend on the type of fur you're doing. But see how it's softer and how it's overlapping and clumping. Think that way when you're doing fur. If you do fur like this, it's zombie fur or plastic fur, one or the other. It looks dirty. It does not look good. So those would be my tips for you there. And usually when drawing fur, you're not going to use yellow unless there's a weird yellow light or a yellow glow. So you have this warm glow. That would be a little bit different. But let's say you're drawing a yellow lab that's under a gray cloud. The yellow in his coat itself doesn't have yellow. Even though he's called a yellow lab, you're not going to use yellow. You're going to use tans, creams, purple. Usually you want to avoid the yellow. Let's see. Kitsy asked if, she said she just got the Derwent water-soluble graphite. Are they any lower quality than the Faber Castell? You know, I don't know. I've not used those. I have one of those pencils that came in a set with something else, and I didn't see anything bad with it. They should be fine. I mean, it's graphite, so you're not really going to have light fast issues there. But I didn't do a full project, so I don't want to say for certain. I would assume it'd be okay, but again, I'm not sure. So I don't know. That's a lot of words just to say I don't know. David said, why using watercolor graphite and not just gray or black watercolor? Is there a big difference? Yeah, I'm just trying to think how to describe this. This is somewhere, the pencil itself, let's say watercolor pencil versus Inktense pencil. This is somewhere in between. It's not quite as permanent. It's pretty permanent, but not quite as much. It doesn't go as dark. It's a little bit easier to control. And here's the thing too. Each of these pencils, I've got everything from a HB, I think it comes with HB, 2B, 4B, 6B, and 8B. That's a big variation that you're not going to get in most watercolor pencils. Usually you get a black and a gray. You don't get this type of a variation with the how dark they're going to be or how soft that lead is. So that's a difference there too. But it does feel a little bit different than a watercolor pencil. You could do the same. Like somebody else could use watercolor pencil and make it look exactly the same. It's not that it can't be done, but it is a little bit different while you're working. And for me, I just wanted to work with graphite pencils. I wanted something that I could do very quickly too. And not that you can't with watercolor pencils, but this is very, very quick or a very fast medium. And I am behind on work right now. So I figured let's get a little project down. I wanted to test this paper out, so these seemed like a good choice for me. I've got the Caran d'Ache watercolor pencil review I'm going to be doing soon, and that's going to be a little bit of a bigger project. So we'll get this one out of the way first. Dino Idea said, is it okay to let my brushes dry up and harden? I feel it's easier to control and use that way. I have very poor dexterity. What do you mean by drying up? Like dry, I mean, this pencil, I haven't used it yet today, and so it's dry. It's not hard, but it's dry. I'm not sure I understand all of that question. I mean, if they're drying up because of acrylic paint, then that would be a problem. That would damage your brushes. You don't want that to be. If you're letting paint from acrylics or oils dry on it, that will cause issue. If you're letting like watercolor dry on it, that will wash right out. So that's not really a problem. It depends on the medium you're using. And just scroll too far. Ooh, lots of questions and I missed them. Here we go. Catherine said, have you used those same pencils to sketch your design? Yes, I use these ones. That way, when I blend over, it's water soluble. You're not going to see any of these lines for the shadow, so they'll go away completely. Momzelle wants to know when you finish a project. I know it's done when it no longer irritates me. That sounds funny, but I mean, like the dolphin that I just finished. For me, I know because of the colors, I really want to hang that on my wall. I loved the colors in that painting. And so my constant question that I'm asking myself is, if I hang this on my wall, am I going to see things that I want to change? If not, it's done. So that if you can kind of think that way, see, look, I used the word kinda again. Stop using that word. But if you can look at things that way, I think it makes it a little bit easier. When I can have something on my wall and I'm not picking apart, I should change this, I should change that. And realistically, years later, you're always going to find things you wanted to change. But if within a day you notice things you wanted to change, then it just wasn't finished. So that's how I know. Let's see. What brand are these pencils? They're Faber Castell. I've got a link for them in the video description. Also in the video description, our moderators tonight, we've got Valerie. She does wood burning. I was actually just watching one of her videos today. She does wood burning, and then she was doing a burning thing with watercolor with a manatee, and it was amazing. It was a live stream, so you can watch how she does it real time. Go check that out. The link for her is in the video description. And Joseph Fincham, he's been doing some really cool videos too. He's got some Inktense and some other stuff, so make sure to go check out their channels. Is huge thank you for helping me out. Plus, their content's just cool. So, 2 bonuses there. Okay, let's see. I feel like this is not on the screen all the way. Like it's cropping weird. It looks good here, but for you guys, it's a little cropped. Oh, because it's frozen. That would actually explain it.
Gonna wait before
Hold
I say
on.
anything.
Mute. I hit the wrong button, so that would be the problem. Let me refresh this page. I'm using it to make sure, I'm looking at the video to make sure everything's lined up properly, but I apparently paused that instead of muting earlier. There we go. Okay, and yeah, that's mostly in screen. Okay, sorry about that. Just making sure that you guys can see everything I'm doing here. Let's go back. Carol asked, what PSI do I run my airbrush at? I'm looking into getting my first airbrush and was looking to get an Iwata Neo gravity feed, the same TC 2000 compressor you use. Okay, I'll show you why I don't know. Hold on, get this out. I can't see anymore. I've been using this for so long. I can't really see. It's, I don't know. So yeah, I have no idea. I go by sound more than looking at the thing. There's so much paint has settled on it over the years, and I don't know. So I apologize. But you'll figure it out as you're using. If it's blowing too much air out, if it's like just coming out full force, you know it's too high. If you'll just turn it down. I like to have it as low as possible while still having the feed come out. That way I have a little bit more control. But let's say I'm doing something that's a big background, I'll just turn it up. But again, I go by sound and feel on the gun, so I'm no help there. Julian wants to know if I'm going to try the Inktense paper white. I'm sure I will eventually. I wonder if I have any here. I have a bunch of paper behind me that I bought, illustration board and different things, and I don't even know what's back there right now. I'll get things when they're on sale, so I'm like, okay, I'm saving money, but then I forget that I have them, so I will definitely have to be doing that. Let's see. Amaras wants to know if it's good to practice on Canson multimedia paper. I've got that. It works okay. It's not my favorite, but there's no reason you can't practice on it. Scroll through here a bit more. Oh my gosh, Rachel got up at 3 in the morning. She's in South Africa to watch. Wow, you are dedicated to watching live streams. Well, thanks for joining. Scrolling. And there we go. I did it super slow and it still scrolled too far. Okay, that fine art guy asked if I have a particular subject that I find horribly irritating or frustrating to draw. No, I mean, okay, I don't like having to use rulers and straight lines and all that, so I don't enjoy painting buildings. I love looking at paintings of buildings. I don't enjoy doing it myself. So that's something that I kind of avoid. There, I used the word kinda again. I need a rubber band to flick myself, so I just pull that word out of my vocabulary. But I've drawn buildings, like I had one person who hired me to paint a house. That was what she would do for housewarming gifts, is have an artist draw the new house so they could frame it. And it was really cool. She had me do it in graphite. And while I loved the idea of the project, I didn't enjoy drawing a house. Once I got to the trees, I'm like, okay, this is the fun part. But the straight lines and all that, it's just not enjoyable to me. I loved how it looked when it was done, but it wasn't my favorite. I guess that would be the closest for me. Fences, anything that I need to do straight lines, not my thing. Let's see. 2 a.m. in the UK for Cat. I don't know how to say your name. Cat you. I'm sorry. We'll call you Cat. I'd say you are up late. That's not late for me though. Vladimir said, I received a request for a realistic wolf, but the person asked me to draw her eyes on it. Any suggestions on what to do aside from telling them that's going to look awful? Can you Photoshop it and show them how bad that would look? The weird thing is, so, I mean, the eyes are in a different location on a wolf than they are on a person. That it's going to look like, it'll be different. Although, I've seen people do where they combine animal and people. I mean, I guess it can be done. I would try Photoshopping it first to show her what it would look like. If it's something that you just don't think, you're like, I know that's going to look bad. I know I'm not going to make this look good. I know they're not going to be happy. I would tell them no. It's not worth ending up with an unhappy client just to get a job. And that's always a struggle when you're doing commissions anyway, because I know I was, at least, you do the starving artist thing and then you're like, I need to pay bills. I can't be turning down jobs, but an unhappy customer is not going to be good either. So if you can Photoshop that and give her an idea of what that would look like, and if she still likes it and you're like, fine, whatever, go ahead and do it. But I would definitely want to show her that first. because that is very weird. I think I told this story last week. I had a girl or a woman who had hired me to paint clouds on her son's ceiling, but she wanted them. She showed me the painting that she wanted. Now, clouds, when you look at them from this angle, are very different than when they're above you. This looked like clouds. This, in combination with the colors she chose, looked like camouflage. She insisted. I should have told her. I warned her because I showed her. I folded the paper and showed her what that would look like and held it up. No, she wanted it. She wasn't happy. I got paid, but she wasn't real thrilled in the end. So that would have been one where she would have just found somebody else to do it and still would have been unhappy. She was determined to have it, but it always sucks when you know someone's not happy with something that you did. And in this case, I warned her and she still didn't want to. But if it was in Photoshop, if you can do that, I think that will give them a better idea so you don't run into a super unhappy person. That's one of the things I love. If you take commissions, learn Photoshop or even like Pixlr. Pixlr, Pixlr. That one's a free version, or similar to Photoshop but free. Doesn't do as much, but it does enough that you can Photoshop in the different things like that. In that case, let's say you have a client who wants you to paint their black lab, and they're insisting they want a dark red or a black background, and you're thinking, I know that's not going to look good. That's not really going to stand out. It just isn't going to look good with the photo you've provided me with. If you can Photoshop that together first and show them why that doesn't look good, it's so much better than going ahead and doing what they asked and then having them realize they don't like it. So Photoshop is so handy. If you're taking commissions, learn to use it, or learn Pixlr, learn some photo editor that allows you to show people before that, when you know, especially if you know that they're not going to like something, it really will save you a lot of headaches. Okay. Mara said that the cluster in the front looks like a mystical female elfish. I'm not seeing it yet because I'm still seeing the flowers, but there's definitely enough shapes in there. I believe you. It would be easy to find all kinds of shapes in there. Let's see. Moonram wants to know if these pencils will work on mixed media paper. Yeah, they'll work on, any paper. You're going to get different results depending on the tooth of the paper, but yeah, you definitely can do that. Let's go ahead and start adding some water. And the brush that I'm using, this one is a Simply Simmons round number 6 that I'm wetting this with. And I'm okay. I'm not trying to keep this super clean. If it gets a little bit, messy looking, I'm totally okay with that. I do want to try and keep the edges of the flowers fairly clean though. Because I'm not going to be able to pull white back on top of that unless I want to do a mixed media, and I'd rather not. So let's see. Mamzelle asked how many times I drop her a week. Normally every day. Green Tea Latte asked, I want a green tea latte. Asked how long do I plan to stream? I will go for another hour and a half. JPC13 Art said it looks like there's an eye in the right. Oh gosh, you guys are going to be finding all kinds of stuff in these shapes, aren't you? Have I seen Super Dizzle? No, I have not. Neil said I am planning on purchasing Colored Pencil Bible, or the Colored Pencil Bible by Aliona Nicholson, and Bird Art by Alan Woolett. I know you like Colored Pencil Bible, but what are your thoughts on Bird Art? I don't have Bird Art, but I love Alan Woolett, so I'm going to recommend it just because I love him and I love his work. I can't imagine it being a bad purchase. Let me know how you like it, though. I should probably buy it myself. Kat said I get up at 5:30 for work, so it's late for me. Oh, 5:30. That is early for me. That's like bedtime. So I'm just going to be a little bit messy with that. Now this is easier because my edges are already pretty clean, or pretty well done. I'm going to smudge this over those circles too, because I don't want those to be that bright. I just want a hint of something in that background. And as I get into areas here, I'm going to add the water first and then work my way out and then let it pull back in. If I work to where the dark, I'll pull too much dark if I go dark to light in, and it's going to be really hard to control. See right there? See how dark that is? So what I'm going to do while this is still wet, I've got two options. One, get my wet paintbrush and pull some of that off. You can pull it off while it's wet. The other, I can take a a Q-tip. Just wipe some of that a little bit. Now, in doing this, I can damage the tooth of the paper, so you have to be careful with that. I mean, it's wet paper, so don't scrub too much if you're doing something like that. Got a little bit too much water there, so I'll dab some of that off and then smudge that around. So my big thing here, I don't care if my circles are perfect. I just want variation. I don't want a solid black background. But look how nice and dark these pencils go. Now that's still not quite as dark as what I want, so what I'll do once that dries, I'll come back through and do another layer, and that should be good for me. Julian said I should try the Artzia colored pencils. So many people say they are good pencils and cheap. And some are light fast. Yeah, they've contacted me asking if I wanted to promote some of their stuff. I'm not sure on that. We'll see. I know they've got a lot of YouTubers promoting it. I'd be more impressed if more were light fast, but the fact that some are light fast could be good. So one of the things when I'm working with any kind of water soluble, so Inktense, watercolor, these, I'm not as concerned with everything being super clean. I'm actually okay with it being a little bit more, or a little bit messy. I like the feel that it gives. If I want things like, let's say I wanted to do this background and I wanted it perfectly clean, I want it to look like a black and white photograph, I'm going to go with regular graphite. I'm not going to use the water soluble for that. These are going to give you a little bit of a different look. So again, here I'm going to add the water first and then work my way out. That actually got a little bit too dark. Let's go ahead and pull some of that up just a bit. We can even add some water to the Q-tip and dab that too. There we go. Keep it soft. The more water you add, the more translucent this is going to be. Too much, I don't want it to run all over, but I also don't want it to be so little that everything's super dark and you can see every single brush stroke. I'm okay with some brush strokes, but I want that loose feel that I'm not really going to get if I don't have enough. So here, I've got a lot of the dark on the pencil, so I'm going to rinse that. I'll just go with straight water and then blend that outwards. There we go. You can, of course, use this flat. Would probably be quite a bit easier to control, but because of my back, I have to work upright. Probably have this lower than I should for my back right now. But I think it would be easier with the flow, the way that the water flows, if it were flat than upright like I'm working now. Have I used TerraSkin for any of my work? I have not. Am I a night or day painter? Night. Definitely night. I am not a good morning person. So here again, I went into the dark and I'm moving my way into those light circles. So what I'm going to do is rinse the graphite off the brush and then start on the circles and blend out so that they don't get too dark. A little bit darker is good, but I don't want them to be as dark as the background, and that will smudge. You're able to move the graphite. Once you add water, it'll move all over the place. It's the same thing. I'm going to start with just water on the brush and work out. Wow, I usually have music or an audiobook or something going on when I work. My neighbors listening to that car sound. It's not a real car, it's a video game. I'm nearly certain that they're playing. Wow, that's annoying. Almost as annoying as me complaining about it to you guys, huh? Everyone loves a complainer. Or is that not how that goes? I'm hoping they get bored of that game semi-soon, because it's been about, it's a week or two I've been listening to it. If they're home, that sound is happening. These areas that are more solid are way easier to control than the areas where I'm trying to keep this lighter look. The Art of Joseph Bishop says, what's a morning? I think that's just folklore. I'm with you on that. Actually, I found out it was a real thing. So I had to take my dogs in for dental work. They had to be there at 8 in the morning yesterday. Morning's real, and it's unpleasant. That fine art guy said he used to be nocturnal like me, but ever since he got his dog, he had to get up at 6 a.m. every day. My dogs are on my schedule. That they sleep until about 1 in the afternoon every day, same as me, but they're up until about 5 in the morning with me too. They don't like to wake up early either, but that's just because that's what I've got them used to. Even our birds are on our night schedule. We just cover them when we're sleeping, so they think it's nighttime. And then we've got the lights on at night, so they are on ours. They still get sunlight in the afternoon because that's when the light comes in anyway. So I move their cages next to the window. But yeah, they stay up late too. Oops. Tammy said, so the pencils act like watercolor but are more temperamental with brush strokes. Well, yes, just in that, like with watercolor, you can blend easier because it'll reactivate with the color underneath. So it's a little bit easier, I think, to get smooth blending with watercolor, or at least with the Derwent watercolor that I played with. But so they're closer to Inktense, I would say, in that aspect. And I can layer on top of layer without reactivating the previous layer. So that's more like Inktense. It's not as permanent, I don't think, but close to Inktense. So that's getting nice and dark. I do think I want to darken some up a little bit more because in order for the piece that I'm doing, in order for the flowers to pop as much as I want them to, I need to make the background super dark. So we'll let that set for a second. I'm actually going to turn off the recording. Someone remind me to turn it back on after I'll answer some of your questions while we wait for that to dry a bit. And you can use the hair dryer to dry it too. It didn't affect it negatively at all when I used that last night when I was not wanting to wait. Patty Picasso said the solution to noisy neighbors is a set of bagpipes. No, I'm a violinist. You don't get much more obnoxious than a violin. When those neighbors moved in, they're actually really nice people, but they kept getting drunk and passing out and leaving their music blaring. 4 in the morning, their music is still just bumping and blaring, and it wasn't even good music. And I had to go a couple times, bang on their door until they woke up. That was... yeah, I mean, you feel bad about waking someone up, but it's like you passed out while leaving your music playing. So it's kind of funny. But I don't want, I've had the thought, well, I'll just put my music up loud so I drown out theirs. But I don't want to disturb the people below me either. And I don't want it to turn into this cycle of everyone in this building is loud and obnoxious just because of one chain reaction. Although I have to listen to people's below me, their dog barks nonstop, so there's that too. Maybe I should put loud music. Usually I just put on headphones and then I live in my own little world and everything's good. So I don't have to worry about it then. Moonram wants to know, talking about music, have you listened to Krishna Das, American vocalist, got nominated for Grammy for Best Curtain? No, I have not. I don't listen to what's generally considered popular, I guess. I don't listen to the radio at all, and I don't think anyone I listen to has been nominated for anything. Let's see. Momzelle said, oh, you are amazing. We love you. Thank you. Fiddle Jewel said, our cockatoo can't be covered. She tears up the sheet and pulls it into the cage. Oh, no. I used to have an Amazon who it was the same thing. Luckily, back then, I slept more normal hours, but I could definitely see that being a problem. Luckily, with ours, I mean, the cockatiel and then the parrotlet, they're not super destructive, although the parrotlet, maybe as he ages, we'll see. Because they're basically a large, like a big bird in a teeny hummingbird-sized body. They've got that same personality type, so there is a possibility we may end up with a situation like that. I don't think he could do as much damage, though. And Maureen said, that unfortunately is apartment living sometimes. Time to buy your house. Yeah, we are going to look into it. It's scary because what if something happens with Patreon? I can't pay my bills then. So I'm afraid to like commit to something too much. And we do need to go look for one. Plus, I love these apartments. I love the area that we're in. There's a lot that I like about them. And I actually, even though my neighbors are noisy, I actually like them. So it makes it less annoying. Luckily, it's not like California. We had a problem with noisy neighbors because still waiting for that to dry and we'll get back to work, because nobody talked to everybody. So it was just some obnoxious person living next door who's being noisy. Here, it's somebody I like next door who's being noisy. I like them, so it doesn't bug me as much as it would if it was just someone who was rude all the time, if that makes sense. So like the dog below me, I complain about him barking all the time, but he's the cutest dog. He's an Australian Shepherd Corgi mix. Oh, dear God, is he the cutest thing you have ever seen in your life. He barks nonstop and it's annoying, but knowing he's super cute, knowing that I really like the neighbors, it makes it more tolerable. So as much as I complain, it's actually not that bad. Just because I like the neighbors themselves. Let's see, that fine art guide said you like coconut water. I love it. What kind of coconut water? I mean, I've had some I didn't dislike. Sometimes there's coconut in... What was I drinking that had coconut? I was drinking, the Bai drinks. They had coconut water, but they also had stevia, and the stevia, it turned out, was making me sick, so I had to stop with those. Let's see. Clary said, will you bring Nugget out? No, because Nugget is my husband's bird, and technically Chicken was supposed to be my husband's bird too, because I don't have that much time to commit to a bird, and they really do need a lot of attention to be super happy. I feel bad if they stay in the cage too much. But Chicken, unfortunately, bonded to me because birds love me, and now I'm not allowed to touch Nugget. Actually, I moved him on top of his perch yesterday, and my husband was acting, he wasn't really mad at me, he was acting like I was going to steal that bird too. So we want to make sure, and he already is, the Nugget loves my husband. We want to make sure that we don't have another Chicken situation where he decides he likes me better. So no, I won't be bringing Nugget out. When he's older and we're certain he prefers Matt, it may get to the point where I can have the two birds sitting on, like bring them in for the live stream and let them sit on the perch. But Nugget himself, I don't really interact too much with. I mean, I talk to him a little bit when I go in there, but I definitely don't want him to decide he loves me best. RCJ Painting said, Tammy is attempting to ask about hairdryer settings. I don't know what the question is, though. If someone wants to let me know what the question is, I can help help you there. I guess I could just talk about dryer settings in general. I put mine on high heat, and I keep my hairdryer, I'd say 6 to 12 inches, depending on what I'm doing. Paper, I'll go a little closer. Canvas, let's say if it's on a painting, an acrylic painting, I will keep it about a foot away, because if you go too close, you can cause the acrylic. It's a plastic. It'll start to bubble and heat, so you don't want to go too high on that. But my hairdryer that I'm using, this one is actually really, really weak. It's a Conair 1875. I got it because it's teal and it was cheap. And I don't care if it has paint all over it. But it doesn't get that hot. But I did have one that was a higher end that was given to me because the person who had it was frying her hair. This thing got way too hot. It was not healthy. So I used it for my art for a while, but I had the same thing with the art. It felt too hot. I didn't like it for that. It would burn. Not burn. I never had it burn stuff, but I always worried because it would get so hot. So this one's a fairly low power that I put on high heat, full air high heat. Jody said, how do these pencils differ from graphite besides color? Well, when you add water, it's like a watercolor pencil or an Inktense pencil. You add water and you can see how it dissolves. You can see that's so dark. But they vary in range from an HB up to an 8B. Or sorry, an HB to an 8B. Yeah, that was correct. So you're still going to have that number, the value system for how dark they are, like you would with graphite. But when you add water, they just kind of melt in, sort of like watercolor. Very similar to that. Am I going to try another water-soluble graphite like Art Graph or Liquid Pencil? I'd not even heard. I didn't know either of those made them, so maybe. Part of me thinks, well, I know these are good. I'll just stick to these. They're inexpensive and they're Faber Castell, who I love, but maybe. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Tammy said, what setting would be best for drawing a project? Low, medium, high. Oh, and she just said, and I'm answering anything. Okay, yeah, you saw that. Good. Barbara said, I have a defective heat tool turned on by itself in the middle of the night. Luckily, my partner is awake and heard it come on. Oh, I had a defective. I'm not reading that right. You know when you read, I don't know if you guys ever do. I do this all the time when I'm reading a book. I'll read it and I'm like, that doesn't make sense. And I'll read it again and I'll think, oh, I actually didn't pause in the right section and totally misunderstood that. I had a defective heat tool turn. Oh, now, yes, I definitely read that wrong. I had a defective heat tool turn on by itself in the middle of the night. Luckily, my partner was awake and heard it come on. Okay, yeah, I definitely was reading that wrong. Oh, that's scary. That could have been frightening. You know what I did? You can get these, you can't really see it down here and it's nailed into the easel, but it's a spiral thing that you can get to like install on your bathroom wall to hang your hairdryer. I put that on the side of my easel. It has been so nice. Helen wants to know if I still prefer precision makeup brushes. I do. For acrylics, I do. I just actually moved one over there earlier. I lost it. I had one in my hand earlier. But I do like them. Ed E asked do you find that it's common for artists to create all night? Since I've gotten more into art, I find that I'm up all night and keep struggling to work during the day. I think it's pretty common. I know it's exactly what happened to me. I wouldn't want to go to sleep. Even last night. I started this last night. I didn't want to stop. I was having fun. I'm like, I've got to stop. I had to stop to get my email newsletter out. I did not want to. I was just excited. This is fun. And it's funny because it's like you think, flowers, that's not super exciting. I don't know. It was just fun. I love this medium. Every time I use it, I'm like, I don't want to put it down. Same with the watercolor pencils I found recently. But yes, that's initially, no, I've always been more of a night owl, but that's how my schedule got to where it was later and later. I just want to stay up. I start painting and I don't want to stop. So yeah, I think I've heard of other artists saying the same thing. So I think it's probably fairly common. Let's see. I'm going to actually go ahead and, I'm plugging my tablet or charging my tablet. I have to unplug that, plug in the hairdryer. They're all sharing the same spot right now. Let's dry this so I can get back to art. If I can figure out how to... There we go. Apparently plugging in a hairdryer is beyond my skill set. Okay, plug your ears for a second. Okay. So I found if the paper isn't totally dry, when you go on top of the graphite, it'll feel dry, but you go on top of the graphite, it doesn't stick very well. So that's pretty much how I tell if it's ready to go or not. Stacy said, I went to Frisco Arts on the Square last weekend and didn't see your colored pencil art. Have you ever participated in it? I don't do the Frisco Arts in the Square because that's the outdoor one, I believe, or it was before, and it was extremely expensive, and I haven't found that shows like that bring in enough money to pay for the entry fees. It's a lot of work and very, like, God, last time I looked, okay, now this was years ago, so it could have changed. It was like $500 or $600 for the table, and if it rained, which this season, it made no sense to me. I'm like, we are in our rainy season, like huge storms, you were still required to be there, and it didn't get, like, you didn't get your money back if the event got rained out. I'm like, that is not money. That doesn't make sense to me. So no, in anywhere in Texas, I will not do an outdoor event, and I don't like doing the outdoor events myself anyway, but I definitely would not do it. And our spring is, I mean, even in the summer, we'll just have random storms come through, and I'm not taking art out into that type of weather. But I do have the Frisco Art in the Atrium, that I'm a part of, that I've been a part of for many years, except for the last one, just because of my health stuff. But I'm back I just dropped off 2 paintings on Friday. So the open house for that, it's in my purse. Where did I put it? I want to say it was like April something. It was sometime in April that their open house for that was. I'll have to look into it. I'm sure it's on Frisco's website. But hopefully I'll be able to go to that. But I will have my art displayed there. They this time took 2 acrylic paintings. I submitted 2 acrylics and a colored pencil, and they took the 2 acrylics. So I'm still working with that HB. I'm actually going to sharpen that a little bit more. Oh, recording. Thank you, Valerie. You are on top of stuff. You pay way more attention than I do. Oh, good. Yeah, a bunch of you are reminding me to record. Thank you. Let's see. Bryson said, have you thought about mixing the Albrechter and those pencils you are currently using? No, just because I don't have those ones yet. But I'm sure I will. Just not yet. Let's see. Gloria said, is it because It's a block that it's not drying. Oh no, it dries. It's just, I'm using a lot of water, and so that's going to soak into the paper, but it dried. It's just a little bit of a time there. Now the pencil's a bit sharper, so my lines are going to be a little bit darker, which is perfect because I really want to darken some of this up. Some I can leave pretty light, so I'm not going to put this everywhere now. I just want to take a few spots, pull that way out. Now if I decide later on that I want to make my lines, my edges more crisp, which I definitely will, it's okay. I can go back and do a little bit of a better job there later. See right there, I pushed a bit harder. We'll fill that in. I'm in a really awkward position. My camera's right. This is where I'd like to be, but the camera's in the way. The question that came up earlier too about doing voiceovers for videos, another tip, you don't need the best microphone in the history of the world. You can get, like, I had the Blue Yeti, what's the Snowball Blue Yeti, and those are like, I want to say like $40 on Amazon, something like that. They're not terribly expensive, and that worked just fine. I like the one that I have better now. It's just the Yeti, the blue, not the Snowball, it's just the blue, I think just Blue Yeti. It worked. I got these ones because I needed it to fit on the Rode mic arm stand thing. Words are hard. But I got that one because the Blue Snowball didn't work for that. But if you're just going to set it on your desk, you don't have to go and spend $300 on a mic. I think it's completely unnecessary. Just depends on your setup. You can get the less expensive ones. I mean, I probably wouldn't spend $10. I would go a little bit more than that, but you also don't need to go jump into spending hundreds. You can always upgrade your equipment later on if that's something that you think would make your stuff better. Whenever you're getting started with any YouTube videos, don't feel like you need to jump out and buy the best equipment. I have slowly added to it. Like, there's no way even now I couldn't afford to go out and get everything that I have. I've been adding to it over the years. So, but don't feel like you have to go get all the best stuff. You absolutely do not. Let's see. Whoops. There we go. Adit said that she just ordered the Graphite tint. Can't wait to try them. Those are fun. I need to do another video with those. I have those, and there was another one, like a water-soluble, I think charcoal is water-soluble in its own. But there was something else I have from Derwent that I haven't tried yet. I need to. And Catherine wants to know how I'm finding the hot press to work with. It's a little bit smoother than what I would prefer. It's working. I think I'm going to be perfectly happy with the end result. And I have a feeling I'll end up buying this again. Actually, I really want to try this with colored pencil too and see how I like it. It doesn't have as much tooth as Fabriano, and I do prefer a little bit more tooth, but it seems to be working out really good. I'm just loving the block. This is just convenient to have this like that. I like it. But what I'm going to do is take these same papers and do a half, like one with the Derwent watercolor, one with the Caran d'Ache, and then the same on the cold press. And that way we can compare and see what I like better, and maybe give you guys an idea of what you might like to try if you don't already have these papers. But I thought that would be a nice way to compare the results there, paint the same thing on both. I also got some arches, the individual sheets, which I think are supposed to be higher quality or better, I don't know, than these. I honestly don't know enough about it. I just bought a bunch of stuff because I had to order other things anyway. But I'm pretty sure I want more of these blocks. I want to try this with Inktense, because the problems that I was having with the newer Faber Castell not holding its shape, that shouldn't be a problem in these blocks. They're really nice. Crystal Sart said, I just ordered Derwent Pro colored pencil for my watercolor. Any advice on using them? Derwent Pro colored pencil. Oh, Pro Color. I'm reading it wrong because it's Pro Color, one word. Okay, advice, sorry. I'm telling you, my brain is not here. Advice on using them. Don't go first. If you're going to do it with your watercolor pencils need to go down first. Don't put your watercolor on top. You're not going to go back and forth between the two. Anything you want done with watercolor, let's say you're going to do a watercolor background, do that first. Have it 100% finished before you start with the colored pencil, the Pro Color, because the Pro Color have wax and oil in them. You're not going to put your watercolor pencil on top of that. It's not going to be archival. But the other thing, when you first start with a medium or something that you're not used to, don't put too much pressure on yourself. I think that's probably better advice than actual technical tips. Play with them. Try to do a project, But don't get mad. Don't be frustrated if it doesn't come out as good as just your watercolor pencils that you're used to. Give yourself permission to make a few ugly pieces before you start expecting too much from yourself. What else with that? They worked really well with odorless mineral spirits. I liked the Pro Color. They worked the performance of those was great. I wish more were light fast because they are nice pencils. Trying to think what other tips for those. I mean, they're very similar to other colored pencils if you've used them, but I found that I didn't have to put as many layers to get the kind of detail or the color saturation that I wanted. Like the pigment just, when I blended out with odorless mineral spirits, they just blended beautifully. Let's see. Rachel said, have you seen Chuck Black art on YouTube? I have not. I actually don't get much time to watch a lot of videos, unfortunately. So I haven't seen a lot of the people who are out there. I'm sure there's some amazing artists that I'm totally missing out on. I just haven't had time. Mamzelle wants to know how I pronounce my name. Lisa Clow is my name, but Lachri is how I sign my artwork. That is a combination. I started that when I was a teenager at the time. I knew eventually I'd get married, and I didn't like my maiden name. So I knew I would for sure change that when I someday got married, and I didn't want that my art name going back and forth between different names. So my name is a combination of my sister Christy and my name. And I ended up with another sister, Leanna, and luckily her letters work too. Otherwise, I'd have to rename her. I'm sure that'd go over well. Actually, she'd be fine with it. She's a sweetheart. She's one of those people who will just like, okay, whatever. She's like so easygoing. Let's see. Eddie said, Derwent Graphitones. I just got those, but I haven't used them yet. That may be what it was. Bryson said, have you tried a student grade art product? Example, Prismacolor Scholar, etc. The Prismacolor, I've tried a few, mostly because I would have students bring them in and want to use those instead. They're usable. I didn't like them. They didn't blend well. I definitely prefer Prismacolor Premier over Scholars. I wasn't a huge fan of the Scholars. But, I mean, they're usable if that's what you've got. Whenever it comes to art supplies, if you're just starting, use what you have until you can get higher quality supplies. But know that if you're having problems, you're like, I can't get these to blend well, there is a very good chance that it is the supplies. So don't kick yourself too much thinking, oh my gosh, I'm just bad at colored pencil. It may be the pencil. Know that when you're using a student grade product. What I like to do when I want to see if a certain project or product is any good is I like to look like, is it me doing it wrong, or is it that the product can't do that much? I like to go online and look at what other artists are creating with those pencils or that type of paint or whatever it is. If you're seeing artwork that you think, oh my gosh, I would love for my artwork to look like that, and they're using those tools, then you know they're at least good enough to learn with. I wouldn't sell it if they're not light fast, but that you can do. But there are certain things like, let's say Derwent Color Soft. Those don't work for my techniques at all, and I have not seen a single painting done with Derwent Color Soft that made me think that's what I want my work to look like. So I knew this isn't just a problem of me not knowing how to use these tools. I mean, they're colored pencils. They should all work fairly the same. But I mean, I knew it wasn't just because of that it wasn't just me doing something weird, that it wasn't working for me. Those pencils just don't fit my techniques. So that's something that you can do, whatever medium you're interested in. Like in this case of Prismacolor Scholars, go see what people have done that just used those. And if you see stuff that you're thinking, oh my gosh, I would love my work to look like that, you know that that's good enough to learn with, that you can do it. But not all, certain acrylic paints don't work with glazing. They'll reactivate the previous layer. Same thing with oil paints. So those don't work for my techniques. Or when I blend wet into dry, they really don't work. So knowing that beforehand or seeing what other people are able to do, that can help. Let's see. Tammy said, would using a phone with a 13 megapixel camera set to record at 920 by 1080 or 1280 by 720 work for recording? It could. Phone's probably going to get super hot. I'm not sure how practical it is. I would do a search on YouTube about people who do that, because the thing is, a lot of people who will use their phone for recording videos, they're doing a quick 10-minute blog or vlog, wrong word. But they're doing a quick, like shorter videos. They're not really meant to run like this thing. I can leave on for 8 hours and it has no problem. It'll get warm, but not hot. It's meant, you know, it's good for recording like that. Whereas a phone, you might end up with some major overheating issues and problems that way because they're not really meant to be left on for hours and hours while you're painting or drawing. So that might be a challenge for you. You're just going to have to test it and see how that works out. It may work okay for you. I think that there are artists who have recorded things on their iPad or iPhone because that's what they had available to you. If that's what you've got, give it a try. Or I'm not saying if it's only an iPhone, but use whatever phone you've got. Give it a try and see how that works. I don't think that it's going to be a problem in the video quality. I think the challenge you're going to have is in if the video starts to heat up too much. Like I post videos. I actually like the video that my cell phone can get good enough. I got a gimbal for it. DJI Osmo Mobile 2 is amazing, by the way. If you want a good gimbal if you don't know what that is, it's a little handheld thing that keeps the video stable, so it almost looks like drone footage, so you don't get the shaky hand if you're out walking or whatever. But the video on my phone is good enough that I went ahead and invested and got the gimbal. So that tells you I like the video quality well enough. The problem is I wouldn't use that for hours on end like I do when I'm painting. So you'll have to test that and see if it works out for you. And some phones may do great with it where others didn't too, so it may depend on the brand. But I know my phone, if I do too much, like if I watch movies on it, it starts to get, well, actually I haven't watched movies on this one. My old one used to get pretty warm. So, but I mean, I would still play it for hours, so maybe you'd be fine with the video. I would try it. Let's see. Vladimir said, since you paint a lot of ocean-related things, have you ever wondered what kind of weird stuff lives in the bottom of the sea? Actually, I used to keep a reef tank, and I love ocean stuff. And what ended up happening when I was younger, I used to like to go and play in the sea foam and all of that. But after keeping the reef tank, the more I learned about the ocean, I got to the point, because I used to live in Southern California, it was like, I'm not getting in that water. There's no way. I know what's in there now. So yes, I find it to be very interesting, and I don't want to get in. I also am too paranoid. Okay, so let's go ahead and blend that one out now. I'm going to use the same brush. And I just I get a lot of water and I dab it on the paper towel that is next to my easel. I'm using a fair amount of water here. Let's really keep this soft. I'm okay if it blends a bit this way over those circles. I don't mind those getting toned down some more. I really wasn't sure if these circles were going to work this way. If I was going to remotely be able to keep any of those. They're right now brighter than what I want them to be in the end, but I wasn't sure if that was going to work. I'm pretty happy with how this is coming together. Again, using a fair amount of water there and then smudging out. I'm starting with the light and working into dark. If I start with dark into light, I'm going to pull too much of the dark over the light areas. This brush is working really well for this. I've tried watercolor brushes for both the watercolor pencils and for Inktense and with the graphite. Actually, I think I tried them with graphite tint too. They're too soft. I don't like them so much with the pencils. Like I see where I watch people use them for watercolor and they're beautiful, but I find that they're too soft for what I want them to do. I really like the tack-on bristled brushes when I'm using any sort of water-soluble pencil. Those seem to work the best for me. Keeping those edges nice and clean. Yay, I think my neighbors stopped playing their game. I actually don't see those neighbors that often. But it's nice. I love living here where when you do see your neighbors, everyone says hi and is super friendly. So not like it was in California. My neighbors there just looked at me like I was insane if I tried to say hi to them. So I can keep building this until it gets as dark as I want. You don't really hit a point where it won't take more layers. You don't get a wax buildup like you would with a wax or oil-based, well, mostly the wax-based colored pencil. Let's soften this a bit more. That's definitely something I like, because when you work with colored pencil, you do hit a point where it's just like, nope, I am not taking more. The paper is just done. And this, I've not had that problem. So I can just build and layer until it gets dark enough. The other thing is, because I'm working with the light hand and with just the nature of the water-soluble graphite when I blend it out, I don't end up with super shiny spots like I do with regular. Let's say I was using an 8B pencil to get it this dark with a regular graphite pencil. I'm going to start building up to a point where it gets kind of shiny. And that's really not something that I've seen happen with the water-soluble graphite. I know some people are really bothered by shine in their graphite work. I don't care that much. I mean, I try to minimize it to an extent, but I'm okay with some being there. But some artists will like just start over if they get too much shine. So this isn't a problem with that, with these. They're a bit harder to control though. Like I said, you're going to have a slightly more loose look. So much. I don't know why this is so fun to me. I love water soluble, any watercolor, Inktense. It is just such an enjoyable medium. Pulling that down. I want to make sure that I don't end up with a halo effect where I go a little bit too light right up against the flower. I want to make sure that the dark touches the flower so that I've got that nice contrast. And I think the video that you're seeing, at least what I'm seeing on my laptop, is showing a bit darker than what this actually is. I wonder, let me finish blending this, and while it dries, I'm going to see if that's something that I can change, because I don't think this is showing accurately. I do think it's showing you it's a little darker than what it really is. I'd like for you guys to see what it really looks like as much as possible. But I want to finish blending that first. Barbara said that she found an Arches sketchbook, the unicorn of art supplies. Arches doesn't make traveling journals anymore. I'm afraid to touch it. I feel the same. I actually have a canvas, which is kind of funny. It's a Frederick's Blue Label canvas, which I love. And you guys know I use those all the time. And they screwed something up, a past employee. I don't know if they were a past employee because of this or what, but they screwed something up years ago and mislabeled, like they printed out a bunch of the wrong label for that canvas. And then they weren't paying attention and accidentally sent me some of them. And I made a video using that wrong label, which was kind of funny. The canvas was good. It was the right canvas. It just had a weird, like the label was just, there was an error on it. And I still have one of them. I'm like, I have to keep it because you're not going to see that kind of error again. It wasn't anything major. Like if you saw it, you wouldn't know it was wrong. I only knew it was wrong because they told me. I was like, I never would have noticed. It wasn't like a misspelling or anything. I think they called it a Pro Series when it was just the Blue Label Ultra Smooth. So it was like super minor, but it's still, I have that canvas back there somewhere because I'm like, kind of like if my husband collects comic books. If you have a misprint on something, they end up being worth a lot more. Not that a misprinted canvas label is going to be worth anything, but it just entertains me, so I've kept it. I am really like surprised at how much I like how this came out. I wasn't sure how those circles would work. I don't know if I even need to go darker. I may leave those alone and go ahead and start on the flowers for now. I might go a little darker. Let's first see if I can edit the video because I think it's showing a little too dark for you guys. Whoops, scrolled too far. Ah. Wow, scrolled way too far apparently. There we go. Kay Faye asked if I feel burned out frequently when I was balancing my vet job and art. Did you set a schedule for yourself? Sorry, my phone is difficult to type with. I was tired because I was dealing at the time with, that was back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I was dealing with, I had fibromyalgia, I had celiac disease, didn't know either one, and I was sick all the time. And the doctors were just basically experimenting with different drugs and pills to try to make me feel better. And half of them would make me even more tired. So I just did not have much energy. That was not fun. But let me see if I can fix this. Configure video. Or you can just not respond to me. That works too. Come on. My contrast is a bit too high. Guess the auto features are not going to work. I'm not sure how helpful this is. But anyway, I didn't set a schedule for myself. I just worked. I would come home and paint. That's just what I did all the time. So I didn't spend a lot of time hanging out with friends. I didn't spend a lot of time, well, I actually probably did watch too much TV back then when I didn't feel well. But a little bit brighter. Okay, that actually is helping. Sorry. This shouldn't take too long for me to figure out how to make it as close as possible. And almost, I think the contrast is still too high. Too much, something like that. 1 second. Let's see. I think that's about as good as it's gonna get. Okay, there you go. That should update for you guys and be a little bit close. It's smoother than what you're seeing. What you're seeing is showing it being harsher than what it really is. You'll see, oh, that actually made it worse. Never mind, let me try to get that back the way it was. Now that it updated, it really looks terrible. Let's see how much time I can waste. But anyway, no, I didn't really set a schedule for myself back then. I just, every free minute was spent painting. So, configure video. Let's go ahead and pull you back up where you were before. Well, this is exciting for you guys. See if that made it any better. I would recommend most to go ahead and make a schedule, but for me, it wasn't. That looks terrible. None of this is super accurate. You guys, you'll see in the video, the final video of this with the good camera, it looks right. This is not looking, this looks more blotchy than what mine actually looks like. I guess that's a little closer though. Anyway, for me, I didn't need a schedule because I just spent any time I was awake enough to paint, that's what I did. But it wasn't that I felt burnt out. I think the art, one of the things that worked well for me that did not work well for some of the girls I worked with. A lot of the girls that I worked with, they were, I guess you'd call them lifers. Like the only job they were ever going to have was the vet, which is fine if that's what you wanted to, if being a receptionist is a vet, like that's what you want to do, great. But they didn't. That wasn't their goal, and so they were super unhappy, but they weren't working towards anything else. For me, going home and painting was a reminder that this isn't forever, because that was a really hard job. You're constantly, people are always arguing with you about the price, and as a receptionist, it's your job to try to get them to pay. And then you get accused of not liking animals. If you did, you wouldn't charge them. It's all kinds of, it wasn't fun at all. But they, the girls that I worked with, they seemed to have a harder time and be more tired than I was, because that was as good as, that was as far as they'd go. And it wasn't what they wanted. So, and that would be true of any job. I mean, if you're working somewhere you really don't want to work and you're not working towards something else that you do want more, then that can be definitely depressing. So for me, that art was the thing that kept me going, because it was like, as much as I didn't like the job, I broke a lead in there. Hold on. Get out. Using this super cheapy, I think this came with a smart art box. I don't even know where this little cheapy eraser or sharpener came from, but it's been working pretty good for me lately. Anyway, point is, the art didn't make me tired. It made me feel better. It was like the thing that got me through how crappy of a job, especially the one location I worked at was really bad. The vet had a drinking problem, and he would fill his water bottle with vodka. We couldn't prove it. We knew he was doing it, and you could smell it on him. They finally, I don't know if he ended up getting turned in for it. One of the girls, I think, did finally, like trying to prove it was going to be the problem. That was after when I had already quit. But anyway, it wasn't a fun place to work. So for me, going home and painting was like, that was a happy time. I felt burnt out with the animal hospital. Rose Torres said, I really enjoy watching your videos. Thank you. Let's see. Very important fun to watch. I love graphite, but you've inspired me to try a colored pencil. Good. I'm glad. It's fun. I like having lots of, I should pay attention to that would have been the wrong pencil. I need an HB. I love having lots of options, because if you get bored with one, you can always switch to another medium. I've got to keep my hand really light, because I do not want to go too dark with some of these. Let's see. See if we've got some more questions. Ruth wants to know what light fast means. It's a term used to determine how fast a color will fade. So like pinks, reds, purples, those have a tendency to have really poor light fast. When the sun hits them or when they're exposed to light, they're more prone to fading over time. And depending on how bad the light fast is, some may fade in 6 months, some may fade in 2 years, some may last 100 years. It depends on the light fast. The light fast rating tells us what that is. So we want to be, it's colored pencil and watercolor pencil, Inktense, all of those tend to be prone to having light fast issues. A lot of them do. Some of them are light fast. You just have to check with the company and their ratings. But you don't want to sell something that isn't light fast, because if you sell it and then in 2 years it fades because you used materials that were not light fast, those buyers are not going to be pleased with you. So that's why we need to know that. Oils and acrylics, most of those are, at least the ones I use, are all light fast. Those they don't seem to have as many problems with light fast ratings as colored pencil, watercolor, and all of those do. So when you're painting flowers, none of this makes sense. It's like, why are you putting that dark spot there? You want to look at your reference photo and look at its abstract shapes. Just copy what you see. If you have trouble with that, try turning it upside down. That can be really helpful, because it tricks your brain into just seeing abstract shapes. And the nice thing about painting flowers, one of the things that makes it fun to me, is they do not have to be perfect. I can make an absolute mess and it is okay. Like these petals aren't the same as my reference photo. Actually, I changed this because I had something in front of it in the photo. But I can change completely change the way these petals are set up, and no one is going to notice it. Well, you guys will know the difference because I just told you, but no one else is going to notice the difference. See. Patty Picasso said, sorry, what gimbal have you got or recommend? It is actually, here, I'll show you really quick. 1 second, it's sitting right over here. It is the DJI Osmo Mobile 2. Ooh, almost died. Super graceful. But what you do, the phone sits right in this thing and it keeps it stable. The whole thing rotates. So when you're panning the camera, you get this really nice, smooth, beautiful footage. So that one, it's $129. Right now, they have a deal with DJI made some kind of deal with Apple, so you can only get it from the Apple store right now. It's pre-order everywhere else. It's back here. But it's DJI Osmo Mobile 2, and if you go to like Apple's website, you can buy it from there. They're $129, and if that's something you're looking for, so worth it, because most of the other gimbals are so much more expensive, and this one, it's really good. I'm really, really happy with it. And I'm using that with my Note 8, which is a big phone. I do have to pop the case off for that. The case, it's too thick. Well, actually, this is a different case. This one might work. But I normally have an OtterBox on that, and that's too thick. So I just pop that out, and it's fine. Ruth Rodriguez said, I have the same problem with the ocean. I'm a paranoid a mermaid or siren is going to pull me in. Shakes my head. Okay, well, that wasn't my fear. I like yours better than mine, though. That yours is more fun. Momzell said, did you challenge you with a new style or some simplification? I'm not sure what the question is. I'm sorry. I need more information. Phyllis said, I watched Safari Live YouTube and they're starting a dive live. Yay, underwater. I'm not seeing that, but yay, underwater. Phyllis said, can you talk, or you can talk to the divers in real time. You might like it. That is cool. Helen B said, how do you keep the Liquitex basics from drying out on your palette? Don't put too much on there and work fast. The Liquitex basics don't dry out as quickly as the Liquitex heavy body. Those dry fast. But the Liquitex basics seem to be slow enough in their drying time that I don't have too big of a problem. But don't put out too much paint either. If you have, a huge gloss, if you're not using it, just don't put too much on there. Another thing that you can do take a spray bottle with water and just occasionally mist it. It'll keep everything a little bit more, the humidity up there. That'll sometimes help a bit. But I paint fast enough, it's not too big of a problem. You will have some drying out, but not terrible. The humidity helps too. If you have a ceiling fan or an oscillating fan in the room, turn it off. That will dry them out way faster. So I don't keep mine on. I mean, I'll have the door. Oh, I forgot to open my door. It's actually nice out tonight too. But I'll have the door open, but not the ceiling fan going. If I'm oil painting, I can have the ceiling fan, but not, I actually don't usually put it on anyway, but I have had a problem with that before. I just got used to not putting it on. My old apartment had a fan in there, and that would really dry things out quickly. So I need a tiny, tiny brush for parts of this. Momzelle said, did you start a project? Just too much for you. No, I mean, I've started projects that I didn't like. It wasn't that they were too much for me. I just wasn't enjoying the process. There have been a couple paintings, they were years ago, and it was before I started designing things in Photoshop. Once I started doing that, that really wasn't too big of a problem anymore. But when there was a painting I did years and years ago, I started, it was with bubbles and different sight hounds. Like one bubble, it was a marble background, then one bubble would have an Italian greyhound floating in it. One bubble would have a borzoi head. As I say it now, I realize what a stupid idea that, like, it looked ridiculous. It wasn't cute. It wasn't pretty. It just didn't have a nice flow to it. If I would have designed it in Photoshop, I, one, would have either found out that doesn't look good, or two, figured out a way to make it work, and I didn't. And so that was one I didn't finish. I kept that painting for years and then finally threw out the canvas. I didn't even want to paint over it, though. It had too much on it. I'm like, I'm just done. It just didn't look very good. So it wasn't that it was too much for me. It just was ugly. But normally I design things beforehand, and that makes it easier to kind of foresee, whatever, what that will look like. Because I think that's when it starts feeling like it's too much, is that it's hard to make it look good. And in that case, I would have known it didn't look good if I had used Photoshop. That was before I really started playing with Photoshop. I was extremely, back then, intimidated by Photoshop. It terrified me. I was using, some of you may know this program, Microsoft Picture 99. From my very first digital camera, it came with that. And that's the only thing I knew how to do any sort of photo editing, like cropping. But it wasn't like Photoshop. And I was afraid to use Photoshop. So that project didn't come out good. And I had a few of them that I did around the same time that it was the same thing. It wasn't that they were too much for me. It was that they were ugly ideas. Like, the ideas sounded better in my head. Although now that I say floating dog heads and bubbles, I'm like, what was I thinking? That doesn't sound good in my head either. But no, none of them have been too much. Just bad ideas, I guess. Bryson said, I had another potential idea for a project. Maybe could draw a glass prism and have different colors of light shining through at different angles. Yeah, that would be cool. Brittany said, oh, for graphite shine, I've been enjoying the Staedtler Lumograph Black. They've got enough carbon to significantly cut the shine. My problem with that pencil and with the Staedtler Lumographs, part of me liked them and part of me didn't. The part that didn't, I didn't like that the part that has the carbon, now that maybe they've changed it, but the one that I used, the pencil, the black ones with the carbon in it, were so flat that it didn't match the graphite for the rest of the piece. It was like so obvious that they were two different types. So I didn't really get too much into that one. I did a project with it. Maybe if I played with it more, I would end up liking it better. But I think I was just overdoing it, and it was so matte compared to the graphite. There's the pencil I want. I wish, one thing I love about Caran d'Ache graphite pencils, I think are overpriced. They're good, but they're no better than any pencil that's like a third of the cost. So, but the thing that I love with the Caran d'Ache, and I'll have them over here, they are color coded based on the value of the pencil. So like an HB is going to be a lighter colored pencil, lighter colored gray, and the 8B would be a super dark. So you can just glance at it and tell what it is. And I'm sitting over here having to go, okay, what number is that? I wish other pencils would copy what Caran d'Ache did there, because this is annoying. And all graphite, that I feel that way. Like, I really wish other companies would color code their graphite pencils. I mean, we do it for colored pencil. I don't know why no one does that for graphite except for Caran d'Ache. And it's the only thing about those that I liked better than anything else, any other brand. Now what I'm doing, I'm leaving mostly white. It's too white. I'm going to have to darken it up later because the brightest whites are going to be in other areas, but I'm going to let it be too bright right now. Then I can go back and darken it up. If I go too dark, I cannot easily lighten this back up. You have to be really careful with these unless you're going to do a mixed media with putting a white on top, which would look a little weird. Vladimir said, is there a specific name? It scrolled too far. I knew it was going to do that. I wasn't even moving it and it scrolled too far. Come on. Where was it? Wow, it scrolled way tou far. There we go. Vladimir said, is there a specific name for a circly, bubbly particle effect thing that you have in the background? Sorry, I've asked too many questions. Bokeh. B-O-K-E-H. Am I spelling that right? Bokeh is that type of look. It's the way that the camera lens in the technical terms and bokeh. And no, don't feel bad about asking questions. I love it. Thank you. Gail said, looks like an eye in the top right corner. I see what you're seeing. We'll see if I end up having to change that. I may. We'll see. There's a good chance I'll tone that down. Max said, I'm still working in your sea turtle coloring page. Oh, still working in your sea turtle coloring page. I'm having so much fun. I would like you to make more coloring pages. I should. I need to come up with different designs for that. But that was fun because all I had to do to make, I mean, technically I can do that with any of my artwork. All I had to do is trace. I can do that in Photoshop, trace out the edges to turn it into a color. Or no, actually I inked that one. So I should make some more. I think that's a good idea. I like the suggestion. Scrolling. Let's see. Piano Art said, I'm literally just back from piano, and I am one who asked about Duper Dizzle. I know nothing about them. I apologize. Kayfae said, when you said that you like to have lots of options with art materials, it reminded me of your love for WoW. Having a lot of options is the main reason why I love to play. I mostly, with WoW I do better. My main is my Holy Priest. I've been playing her for years. So her and my Warlock are my two. I don't switch around too much. I always laughed. I have a friend and then my husband both who cannot stay with the same character for any length of time when it comes to Warcraft. They're constantly changing. Okay, let's see. Any good recommendations on a good fantasy series? For books, have you listened to the Heartstriker series by Rachel something? Where's my phone? I'll pull it up for you. This one is one of my favorites right now. The last one just came out, and they're so good, and I love them. 1 second. Whoops, wrong app. Oh gosh, I updated my Audible app and it keeps going back to a weird homepage. Okay, let's see, where is it? Heartstrikers by Rachel Aaron. The narrator. Now that is one I wouldn't want to read myself. I think the narrator just brought so much character to the characters. Like Bob, I love Bob and his pigeon, which if you read it, you will know what I'm talking about. Loved that series. And that one, it's the Heartstriker series. I think the first one is Nice Dragon or something. Nice Dragons Finished Last or something like that. Something about a nice dragon. That one's fun. It's funny. It's got dragons. So that one I really, really enjoyed. What else? I need to scroll through here. Ooh, Under the Never Sky. That one by Veronica Rossi. That one was a good book. I liked that. I haven't listened to that in forever. Daughter of Smoke and Bone it's a trilogy by Lanny Taylor, is one of the best, it's a fantasy, one of the best books I've ever read. It's a 3-part, it's narrated by Christine Vam, Christine Vam makes everything good. She's my favorite narrator, and that was another one. She just brought a lot of life to it. It's not as funny, like the Heartstrikers book I think was more silly. I mean, there were some serious parts, but it was a little bit more fun in that, but the Daughter of Smoke and Bone, it was such a good book. It was just beautifully, beautifully written. So much love to that one. Yeah. I'm not recommending those. Those are terrible. Got a lot of terrible books in here too. If you like vampire type vampires and werewolves and that sort of thing, was it Relentless is the first one? No. Who is it? It's by Karen Lynch. What series is that? Relentless. I think, Relentless. Yes, that is. Just double checking. Relentless series by Karen Lynch. Loved those books. Those are some of my favorites. I listen to them over and over again. They're just fun. Love the characters. Loved those. Those ones were the narrator for the first three they're okay. I'm good with that. I can't stand the narrator, the male narrator they used from the other books. They started incorporating him, and he is terrible. He's monotone, and I don't know how people fangirl out, oh, his voice is so amazing. Yeah, but he sounds like he's reading an IKEA catalog. He doesn't sound like he's narrating a book. He's terrible. So those I had to read myself. I didn't like the audiobooks. Anything that he's read. The books themselves are great, but I can't do the audio on those. But the female who narrates, she's okay for the first three. So that'll keep you busy. There's some suggestions. Whoops. Molly wants to know where I got the reference photo from. It's from Pixabay. This one is bright yellows and oranges. Which reminds me, I need to do our group challenge for Patreon still. Random thought that popped in my head. But it's bright yellows and oranges that I just made into black and white and then cropped for the size that I needed. Now I'm going to go ahead. Where's my HB? Let's pull that back. Let's pull a little bit in here. Have to be really careful because I do not want to go too dark. Bryson said, can you help me understand the graphite materials? Like, what is the full range of the graphite products you can generally buy? I own the Derwent medium graphite pencils. It has a 6B to 4H. My Derwent graphites, theirs range from, God, I think one's a 2H. Like no, I'm sorry, there's definitely a 2H. One's like a 9H, an 8H or a 9H. Super light. All the way up to a 9B is pretty typical in a lot of sets. That is going to be your darkest. The higher number with B is going to be the darkest. The higher number with H is going to get lighter and lighter. So it just depends on the brand, which values they come in. And if you look, most packages, if you look on the back, will tell you what they're available. Like these ones here, it shows you what they are on the front of the package. But the tins, a lot of those come in, will tell you on the back the range from 4H to whatever, but the different brands will have a different range. The higher number with an H is the lighter. It's the harder lead, so it's going to come out lighter. The higher number with a B gets darker and darker because it's a softer lead. Piano Art wants to know how long I played violin and have I enjoyed it? I have. I played since I was 9, so oh gosh. 30-something years? 30-something years? A long time. Moonram, question, how do you lighten if you accidentally go too dark? I don't know. Not with these. You can't erase. I mean, you would have to use another medium, maybe a gel pen. I don't know if you had one that was light fast, might work on top of the graphite. It probably would stick. I haven't tried it, so I don't know for certain. It should. But you're not. You just want to be really careful and let the white of the paper show through. So go lighter than you think you're going to need to go and slowly build up to your dark. Because if you go backwards on that, you just have to deal with certain areas being darker than you initially intended. And realistically, I mean, there's plenty of times on this one that I'm a little bit darker than I planned on being. I just let it work. It doesn't mean you've ruined it. It just means that's what that one's going to be now. But do be careful and try to maintain the white of the paper. And that's why I'm going too light intentionally, because I can go back and darken it, no problem. I can't go back and lighten it easily, though. So I've got to be really, really careful on some of these areas. Yeah, Barbara Lovelace suggested an eraser. It doesn't work on these now. If you haven't added water, you can erase. Like here, I did not add water yet, and you can see how that erased. Didn't erase great, but it does erase. Once you add water, it's not coming up. That's pretty much it. You can kind of lighten it by adding water and lifting a little bit, but like here, the paper is a little bit rough from where I did that. I'll probably sand that just a bit. I'm actually going to do it with my nail. Scrape some of that where it started to lift. It doesn't really lift that much, so You just have to be careful. Scroll too far again. There we go. Oh, that's interesting. Barbara Lovelace said that she uses her Staedtler Mars Lumograph black pencils with charcoal, and she washes her graphites with turpentine to get rid of the shine. I've never tried that. That is really interesting. I may have to play with that. That's a cool tip. Will Elliott said, I was hoping you might be able to demonstrate a bokeh background in a flower meadow showing how the grasses would be done. That would be cool. See, the thing is, in something like that, I have to find just the right reference photo, and it has to be royalty free in order to really do something like that. But that look, I know what you're talking about, and we're going to need to make that happen. I like it. JBC 13 Arts has been distracted the whole time by the eye. Part of me wants to just put like a little dot in these guys up here to make it funny, but I would ruin it, so I'm not going to. I'll be good. Let's see. Gail Perkins said, got here late, didn't see the reference photo. Will this piece have color in the flowers? It will not. This is going to stay black and white. Oops. Scroll too far. Ah. Momzelle wants to know if I tried try something you never tried to challenge yourself. I mean, I try new things I never tried before to challenge myself all the time, I guess. The watercolor pencils were a challenge. I'd never used those before. Here, I'm trying bokeh with water-soluble graphite. Never tried that before. So, I mean, I think with art, I don't need to do it as a challenge. I'm always trying something I never tried before with art. So, that's not, the concept of that is not something new or something that I'll ever hopefully stop doing. I want to constantly be trying something new. JPC 13 Art said, I'm still waiting for you to read Six of Crows. Yeah, I need to get around to that. Gloria Leonard said, are you changing the hardness of your pencils tonight? And what's the one you're using right now? This one, I was just using the HB, and then where I switched, where it got really dark, I switched to my 8B, because that's going to be like black. You can see how dark that is. But these lighter ones, I'm using an HB on. So yeah, I'm changing constantly, depending on what I'm looking for. Where did that go? When SGWW said, I was a walking PSA for your channel and Patreon channel today. Haha, thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm taking a full demonstration on how to find you on all your social media sites for my drawing class. Well, that's awesome. Or talking full on demonstration. That is so cool. Thank you. So one of the things I thought I mentioned to you guys, let's see, whoops, hold on. Sandra said, now that you started with watercolor pencils, I wonder if you would try to mix a painting, the watercolor and the classic colored pencils. I absolutely will. Because that is one thing I used to do before. I mean, it wasn't with watercolor pencils, but I did do watercolor backgrounds and then colored pencil on top when I was a teenager. And I always had fun doing that. So that actually, which is funny, when I first did the colored pencil, the lionfish, my plan was to do the underpainting with the watercolor pencils and then go back on top of it with regular colored pencils. I was going to use the Derwent Pro Color to clean up edges. I didn't realize, because I'm not great with watercolor. I've not really practiced with it. I was so surprised I didn't need to. I just used the watercolor pencils by themselves. But that one I intended on doing mixed media and just didn't need to. I was able to get what I wanted just from the watercolor pencils. So that was kind of exciting for me. I don't get out much. Yes, that's exciting to me. Let's see. Again, being really careful. This is with the I'm working with the HB. Yeah, making sure. This one's with the HB. Again, going to go too light, and I can go back and darken it, no problem. I just don't want to start too dark and not be able to easily fix it. And I can add the pencil here, and when I add the water, it'll smudge further out. So I'm able to blend really well that way. Alani said, I've been using sandpaper block to sand down my charcoal pencils and using the powder on a brush to shade my work. I'm wondering if you think that's a good technique to use. Sure. Here's the thing with art. Unless you're doing something that makes the work not archival, like I don't know, using glue on doing a mixed media with glue that's not acid free, or using paper that's not acid free, pencils that aren't light fast. As long as what you're doing doesn't affect the archival quality of your work, if you like the results you're getting, go for it. There's nothing wrong with that. Yes, you are going to have purists in every medium who will tell you it's wrong and don't do this, like don't use certain shading tools. Don't use this, don't use that. If you like the results you're getting, use it. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as you're not affecting the archival quality. Now, if you're affecting the archival quality, but you're just going to make prints, you just like the results you got with certain things, whether it be non-light fast pencils, like when I use Inktense, actually a lot of the Inktenses, it turns out, are more light fast than we thought. But let's say you're using something that is not light fast, or not acid free, that sort of thing. If you're making prints, it doesn't really matter one way or another if you like the results you're getting. But if you're planning to sell it, just make sure that what you're doing is not, any methods aren't affecting the archival quality of your work. I say it all goes. I say it never made sense to me where people are like, don't use an eraser in your graphite work. Don't use a blending tool in your graphite work. Don't use white watercolor pencil. For me, or white watercolor, I should say. For me, as long as I like the results, that is all that has ever mattered to me. None of those other, like the purist kind of attitude on those. I mean, if that's how they want to work, that's fine too. But don't tell me what I have to do, as long as I'm not hurting the archival quality. It doesn't matter. And I think that's the same. If you like the results you're getting from sanding down the charcoal and powdering that on there, that's awesome. Experiment. Artists should always be experimenting with new techniques, new anything. Just try different things. That's always a good thing, I think. And if that's working well for you, that's great. Keep doing it. Let's see. If you're working, Via asked, if you're working on watercolor paper, you can fix boo-boos or lighten with Daniel Smith watercolor ground. That's interesting. I'm going to have to look into that. I wonder how that would look up against the graphite, because you end up with a certain way that the paint is kind of transparent. And if I added white and that white was not the same color as the white of the paper that I'm letting shine through here, I would have to make sure to add that white everywhere. So if it was like one mistake in one area, it wouldn't look right to use it because it wouldn't match the rest of the lights everywhere else. But if I took something like that and used it for highlights all over, then that could look really cool. So I may look into that. Thanks for that suggestion. Gail Perkins said, do you have a list or chart defining what medium can or cannot be mixed on a piece? Like what layers play well together? No, but just as a general rule, what you want to know, don't put a water-based product, so watercolor pencils, graphite pencils, all of those, well, because they're water-soluble graphite anyway, don't put that on top of a wax or oil-based product. It's water and oil don't mix. You can put water mix or water-soluble first, watercolor, Inktense, that can go first, and then wax-based products on top, but not the other way around. Same thing with oils and acrylics. You can put oil on top of acrylic, but not the other way around. You don't want to put water-based on top of oil or wax-based because of archival issues there. Other than that, you should be fine, as long as you stick to that. Moonram said, do you think it would be faster and more controlled to apply graphite by picking it with a brush like paint instead of pencil first, water next? By picking it with a brush... Well, the regular graphite, like let's say I used the water, well, I didn't try it with the graphite powder, but regular graphite isn't water soluble, so you're not going to get the same, maybe faster and more, I may be reading this wrong. Do you think it would be faster and more controlled to apply graphite by picking it with oh, I know what you mean. Okay, so like what I do with Inktense. See, I knew I was just reading it wrong. No, I like what it looks like this way. So with Inktense, the reason that I do that where I apply it with a brush is because if you don't, it comes out super grainy and gritty. And it's faster, obviously, with the brush if it's a big area. But for something like this, no, I really think that working with a pencil, everything dissolves so well. I like the look that I'm getting with this one. So I don't think that it would be faster. And with these, you could, if I had a large area, I could hold the pencil sideways so I've got the bigger surface area if I needed to. This one's small anyway, so it wouldn't make sense for me to do that. But you could do that. That would be a method that you could use. It's not going to be as dark. I think you would have a hard time with these getting them as dark as you want them. But it could be done. So here's an area. I want to make this area here a little bit darker. I'm not going to put the pencil. I'm just going to smudge what I lifted here over here so it's not too dark. So see what I mean? How you can pull out and blend. I didn't want to put pencil all that way because I don't want it to be that dark, but I do want it darker than what I've got now. Sandra said, you often say that you barely go outside. I was wondering how often you would go to the museum or galleries, and how an artist is your favorite at the moment, or probably what artist is your favorite at the moment. So I'm weird. I don't enjoy much in the way of galleries. I don't enjoy museums. I just want to go home and paint. I want to create. And I'm the same way with music. I don't like going to concerts because I want to be on stage playing. I want to play. It drives me crazy to watch other people play. I'm like, I want to play too. I want to be a part of that. It would be like watching people eat food. I don't want to watch, I want to eat too. That makes no sense to me. I don't want to see photos of your food. I want to eat the food. So it's the same with galleries. I mean, as much as I enjoy, I would rather look at, and I know it's not the same. It is definitely different to look at something in person, but I'm always very tired too. So that's another thing. Like the act of getting up and going somewhere is exhausting. And when I see paintings, I'm already motivated all the time to go paint. So going and seeing new paintings doesn't motivate me to go do more. I mean, I go to galleries occasionally, not often. It's just not something that I get really excited about. I know, I'm weird. That is not the norm for most artists. Most artists love to go to galleries. If I go to a gallery, I like to go, like I'm looking forward to the Frisco Art in the Atrium event that's coming up next month, because I've got paintings displayed there and I feel like I'm a part of it. I like that feeling of being a part of it, but as an outside observer, I don't know, I just don't have fun with it. I'm weird, I know. So actually this one, I'm going to go with a lighter one, maybe 2B, and I'll come back through with an 8B. What wattage is my Alt Light? I'm actually not using an Alt Light right now. I think it's on my supply list. If you go to my website at lachri.com, look under, I don't know if it's on my supply list. It's a newer one. This one, does it say? I'm going to blind myself looking at the, no, there's no label anywhere on this. It's from, I got it at Amazon, and it's not an Alt Light, it's a daylight bulb, and I like it better than my Alt Lights because it's more adjustable. Like everything about it is really easy. It's 2 bars that I can move around. If one of you guys remember what I bought, some of you might remember what I'm not remembering. If you can comment on that, because I do not remember. I need to start including that in all of the videos to let you guys know what I'm using. I don't know why I didn't write that one down. That was silly of me. I know I have it written in some of the other videos. Now see here how I'm like little circles and messy and all of it. It doesn't matter. You're not even going to be able to tell that this wasn't super even once it's blended out. So got to be careful where my harsh lines versus soft lines are. Definitely want to watch for that. Barbara said she thinks she has this light. Can you mark what it was if you remember what you bought? I don't remember what it is. I guess I could look it up on Amazon. I wonder how long it'll, you know what? It's going to take me too long to look that up right now. No one wants to sit me and watch me screw around with my phone. If one of you guys remembers what it is, please write it down. Okay, and now here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back through and darken areas, but what I'll do is go ahead and blend this, and I'm going to smudge this out. But I'm going to do it in dots because some of this I do want to stay white. Actually, I'm going to switch brushes. Let's go to a liner. So I'll lift some of that pencil, then I'm going to do dots to build up so that I can have some of the white showing through. I'm going to come back through next time. That isn't enough, but I don't have enough graphite on there to keep spreading. So when I darken it up more, I'll do that more. Nicola said, when I do shading with graphite pencils, usually B or 2B, and use the blending stump, the stump usually ends up muddy. It might be because I'm too rough with the stump. No, that's normal. That's actually very normal. And for me, actually I have one sitting right here. See how it's dirty all the time? I like to keep one side that's cleaner for lighter areas, and then the other side I let be super, super dirty. So that is totally normal, because what I can do now, let's see if I can do on the back of this. I can take the dirty side and use that for blending without reloading it. I can get a nice soft blend if that's something that I want. So that's normal. It's not, I've never been one. I know some artists will scrape off or try to keep theirs clean all the time. I don't want it clean. I want one side to be dirty and messy and one side to be clean. So I don't do anything to try to clean that or anything. Gail said, as a vocalist, I have a hard time watching a band. I want to always jump on stage and join the band. Yeah, that, you know what I'm talking about then. Same thing. Oh, Barbara Levla said, it's the duo lamp with clamp, double shade dimmer. I'm reading the box. It's got a weird, yeah, the duo lamp. Look that up. It was on Amazon. It was around $55. And mine, I have got the one that clamps onto the easel. It is so nice. And it's adjustable based on, it's a touch on the ends. And you can make it, like, you have so many options on how bright you want, which I like way better than my alt light. My alt light was good. I don't remember what the wattage was. It was good, but this is more practical for sure. Vladimir said, any update on the live shopping with Lisa idea? No, I actually should have done that the other day when I was shopping for a bunch of stuff. I'm sure we'll have it eventually. Daylight Basics Duo Lamp. Green and white box, Barbara said. Gail said, I got an alt light a few days ago. Third of the price Tuesday morning. Oh, you asked me about that, I believe. That's the floor lamp one, like the one I have. I like that. I use mine and still. Usually I use it when I'm filming videos. I can put it, or not these videos, but the intros. I stick it off to one side. It's really adjustable, which is nice. Mine cracked on part where it bends, and you'll probably have that happen too, because I've seen this in others. I just took duct tape and taped it back up. Let's see. Okay, what was it doing? We'll let that one dry a bit. I need my HB again. So what I'm doing, I'm just going to pick one area and work on it. And then I let it dry and work on another area until this area dries. I can sit there with a hairdryer if I want and dry each petal and make sure every petal's, just work on one start to finish. That's definitely an option. But for something like this, I'll just work on a couple and work back and forth. So while one dries, go back to the other. But I don't want to try to do all the petals at once because that does get way too overwhelming. This one, I'm having to fix some of my lines in here. So what I'm doing too, it helps if I can get some of these areas that are a little bit darker. It makes it easier for me to judge my values on the things that are next to it. So I don't want to do necessarily my lightest flowers or lightest petals first, blocking in some of the areas that I know are darker, because if I do the lighter ones, I usually go too light, but by comparison, if I can get some of these darker values, it's a little bit easier. So when I say I work light to dark, I mean on the individual thing that I'm doing, but I'm not picking the light flower petals and doing those first necessarily. I just don't want to make them too dark too early. Moonround said, will you go more layers of HB to get it dark or go in with a 4B or 6B? It depends on what I'm trying to do. I'm going to go back and forth. Both methods work. You're only going to go so dark, you know, the 6B or the 8B will get, 4B will get way darker, but I can build up a little bit more slowly this way, and it's a bit safer. Let's go ahead and, oops, I don't want my liner brush for that one. Now these, I find when you put water on them, it's not as extreme, especially the light ones, not as extreme as what happens when you add water to Inktense or watercolor. Those, it's like really extreme, the difference. But I still would recommend test it on another piece of paper if you're new to using these, to make sure you have a general idea of how light or dark it will be. And plus it matters too how much of the graphite you put on the paper. That'll make a difference. When you draw everything out, you'll go back and there'll be lines where you're like, I don't even know what that line goes to. it can start feeling a little overwhelming. So this one is just a bud. I think the petals already fell off. Catherine said, is it best to complete the backgrounds before the primary subject matter? It depends on the artist. I prefer working from whatever's farthest back and work my way forward. But a lot of artists will do the opposite. Completely depends on how you like to work, but it depends on the medium too. Like with acrylics, because of the way that I layer, it wouldn't make sense to do the foreground and then the background. I wanted to be able, in order to get it to blend smoothly, I need that background done, and I paint the foreground completely on top of the background. Like I don't paint around the subject or anything with acrylics. So that depends on the medium. With this, you could, personal preference. Oil painting, the way that that works, I could work front to back. It doesn't really matter that. It kind of matters because of the blending. I'm able to blend over the foreground without messing anything up. And that's my big thing. I'll get messy when I blend backgrounds. Again, not this. This really wouldn't matter. But if I were working on an oil painting where I've got floofy clouds, when I blend those out, I want to be able to not worry about accidentally blending over a tree in the foreground, because the tree I haven't painted yet. That'll go on top of the clouds. And I think that it just makes sense to my brain to paint it that way, and I get better results that way. But the style that you're painting will also make a difference, because if you're a bit looser, more impressionistic, then it's not going to make as big of a deal then either. You could paint foreground first and then the background. There's so many factors that depend, but I've seen artists do both. Personal preference, whatever works for you. I like back to front. Ellen said, I know you mentioned always working from photos. What about still life? My botanical scientific instructors always say I must work from life, but I don't work fast. Any suggestions? I don't say there's a must in anything. It's art. Work what works best for you. Now, yeah, with still life, you can work from life, and some people do best that way. And one of the things, the complaints, actually, I'm going to go ahead and stop this. We're pretty much done for the night. One of the things that I often hear people say is that if you work from photograph, your work looks flat. No, not necessarily. It depends on the artist. I've seen artists work from life and their work where it looks flat to me. It depends on so many things, and understanding light, understanding contrast, and where to have shadows and how to create depth. I can see that in a flat photograph. I didn't used to be able to. I had to learn how to do that. I used to paint things very flat. So it doesn't, I don't personally believe that. There are a ton of artists. Anytime you get an artist who says, this is the only way to do things, you must do it this way, right there, to me, red flags, because it's art. You're going to work how your brain works, and everybody's brain is going to work different. You may find another artist who absolutely cannot work from photograph. Their brain doesn't translate it right, whereas they work from life beautifully, where another artist, it's the other way around. Everybody's different, and it's art. If you're happy with your end result, it doesn't matter to me how you got there, if at all. Again, going back to as long as you're not making your work so that you're still keeping everything archival and all of that stuff. But it's good, I think, though, to learn how to do both. I think it's important to learn to paint from life, because it uses it. Your brain works completely different when you're working from life versus working from a photograph. You're translating that very, very differently. So it's good to be able to do both. But like, I've watched a video, it was this sensationalized one that did all these scare tactics, and it said that if you work from life and then you start working from photograph, you can actually lose the ability to ever work from life again. And I'm like, really? That is the biggest bunch of bull I've ever heard. You're just making stuff up now. But so there, you will get people who do this whole elitist thing with art, and anytime one person tells you their way is the only way, this is the only one right way, their way is a way that works well for them. It's not the only way. There is no, it's art. That's like the thing with art. It's not math. There's no one right way, one only way. This is the right answer type thing. So you need to, I think it's a good practice. I think it is good to be able to do both, work from life, work from photo. I am much stronger at working from photo than I am from life, just because I do it more often. I'm more practiced. That does not mean I can't go back to working from life too. I do occasionally do sketches here and there. I'm slower with that than I am from photo, because my brain's used to translating one or the other. But you can go back and forth between the two, and anything with art, the more you can do, the better. But anytime I hear an artist say, this is the way you have to do it, you must do it this way, like, I'm not listening to anything. You just discredited yourself to me on everything. But That's going to be personal preference. And again, it's art. There's no one right or wrong way. You've got to figure out what works best for you. Let's see, answer a couple more questions before we wrap up. I have a salad waiting for me, which sounds more amazing than normal. I am hungry. Let's see. Gail wants to know how Nugget is bonding with Matt. His daughter's green cheek conure bonded with her at first and then switched suddenly to her husband. He's doing great. He loves Matt, but I'm not handling him because I'm not that. What happened to your daughter, that is not uncommon, and I am not chancing it. As long as I don't handle him, he's not going to switch to me. So yeah, that's I don't spend time with him. I spend time, and it's perfect because Chicken wants to spend time with me, and so Chicken's not had any jealousy issues or like he's been actually happier having another bird in the room. They're not, they don't have come into contact. Although my husband was holding them both and they were both eating from the same millet the other day. So they're doing okay with each other. Nugget wants to pull Chicken's tail out. So we have to watch him on that one. But I mean, it's worked out really well because it's more one-on-one time with just me and Chicken and then more one-on-one time for Matt and Nugget. So it's working out really, really well. I wasn't, you always wonder when you bring a new animal or a new pet into the house if it was a good idea. It was definitely a good idea. It's working out beautifully for us. And Matt is so in love with that little bird. So it's really cute. Can Chicken come out for the end of the stream? No, I'm not bringing him in here yet because last week I was oil painting and I want to make sure next week I'll be able to bring him out. And I think I'm working on a watercolor pencil next week, so Chicken should be able to come out, but not today. I want to make sure that the air, I don't smell the oils in here anymore. It's probably safe, but probably and definitely aren't quite the same. I'm going to go with definitely because I do not want to make Chicken sick. I am way too attached to that bird. Let's see. Helen said, if you had to paint underwater rays of light but did not have an airbrush, how would you paint them? I would glaze. If I was working with acrylics, I'm assuming in that case, I would use transparent mixing white and try glazing on top of it and build up the layers like that. You can do it that way. Actually, you could even use regular titanium white and glaze to get your rays of light, get those on there to where they're stronger than what you think you want them to be, way lighter, and then glaze my watercolor back over, not watercolor as in watercolor, but whatever color for my water, so phthalo blue, whatever the color that water was, phthalo green, glaze that on top of the background water base color and the rays of light, and it'll push them both together so that they're just not as high of a contrast. That would be my first choice. Tracy said, if you're preparing for an art fair where there are multiple artists showing, how many pieces would you realistically bring not to look like a diva? Well, it depends on the space that you've got. I mean, I want to fill my space completely. I don't want to look at it as competition. Like, I'm not worried about fitting in with the other artists. That means nothing to me. I want to make my display as good as I can make it for me because that's more important than worrying about, well, I don't want to step on their toes. That's not important to me. I want to bring what I have the space for. I want to fill it completely. I don't want to have empty walls or anything like that. And if you think that you're going to sell a lot, now art fairs, you don't typically sell a lot of originals at. If they're like $300-$400, you generally are going to sell things that are like $50 or less, $20 ideally. So print postcards, that sort of thing, prints, those do better, at least in my experience. Now it depends on the show, because if you go to a higher end show like the Laguna, Laguna has their Sawdust Festival. There, you're more prone to selling paintings that are quite expensive there because of the customers that are going through. It depends on the location, but for most of them that most people are going to do, things that are a little bit cheaper. So let's say you had a bunch of paintings on canvas board that you're selling for $20. You may sell enough of those that you want to bring a box full of extras that people can look through. But you want to fill the space and you want to make that space, you want to create an experience to where the people walk in there and they feel whatever message you're trying to get across from your paintings, you want them to feel that. And worrying about what the artist next to you is doing is not going to accomplish that. Getting ideas for how they made their displays, that's one thing. Then I want to get those ideas. But you don't want to go into it feeling like you're competing with everybody else. You just want to do the very best that you can with displaying the art that you have and fill the space as good as you can. But you also don't want it to look like a hoarding situation where people are uncomfortable going in because they're like, oh my God, these boxes are going to fall and crush me and I'm going to die under all of these paintings. So that's also, a consideration. You want people to feel comfortable when they're going into that space. But don't worry about the other artists. Don't worry about looking like a diva. Worry about making the best experience for anyone coming into your booth as possible. Whoops, scrolled too far. Let's see. Angela wants to see Chicken too. We'll bring him out. I'll try to, he should be able to be in here next week. Let's see. Vladimir said, what is your view on like completely white paintings or canvas with a large circle on it or things of that nature? They do not appeal to me or impress me. My personal, they don't go with my decor as part of it. So, you know, some people, depending on how they're decorating their houses, that may be really cool and it just goes with their style. It doesn't go with mine, so it's not something that I'm personally really into. I mean, if people enjoy painting it, fine. If people want to pay an arm and a leg for it, fine. It's not my thing, but I don't like judge someone badly who does like it. Marta said, any tips for graphite portraits? P.S. Love your videos. Thank you. Work small. Don't try to like do all the skin at once. Don't try to do, I don't know, just like any other medium, I would say break it down into one small section at a time and work upside down. Not you upside down. That would be weird. Turn your artwork upside down. Turn your reference photo upside down. You're going to see so much more than you noticed before. And for blending, I have found recently, I really like graphite powder with soft tools, the soft tools, S-O-F-F-T, the ones that we use for, or I don't use pastels, but the ones typically used by pastel artists. Those worked really, really well on the little palette knife type stick, the blending tools. That worked really well for me with the graphite powder. So if you're trying to get a really light shade, that may be a good way to go. Tammy said, thank you for the wonderful stream. Oh, thanks. And advice, I'll give the phone test a run at short intervals. Let me know how it goes for you. Hopefully that works out for you. Barbara said, thanks for the stream. Glad you're feeling better. Me too. Thank you. I'm definitely, I have been feeling much better lately. Crystal's Art said, how do you bring back any highlights when you use the water-soluble graphite? The Art Graph has a very good white water-soluble graphite block. But are there any other ideas to try? No, but I want to try that one now. I don't know. And see, the problem is on something like this, I'm letting so much of the white paper show through. Let's say I used a white, I could use white Inktense would probably show up fine. But it's going to look very obvious that that is different than what my background paper is. So if I'm going to use anything else to pull out white highlights, I need to make sure that I'm using it all over the place, not just like, oops, I messed up here. I wanted a white highlight, you know, something I messed up. I'm only going to put the white there. It would be obvious that I've got one spot of something else. So I need to make sure that I incorporate that throughout the flower so that it's well balanced. But I've not done that. I'm just making sure I leave the white showing of the paper, being careful. And if I cover something on accident, I cover it on accident. It's already, I mean, there's a few spots where I'm like, oh, that was supposed to be lighter. It'll work. No one's going to know the difference. You guys will, but no one else would. We'll answer one more question from Julie. Said, hi Lisa, how do you feel about blending colored pencil with colorless blending marker? I'm at the point where just thinking about OMS makes me dizzy and I'm not a fan of burnishing. I've used the markers. Some people use them and love them. I don't. I had two problems with the marker. One, it dries out so fast. You may be able to put alcohol. I think that's all it is. Look into that. Don't take my word on that. I haven't researched it. But you may be able to refill that. But the problem that I had, I used the Prismacolor one. It dried out so fast. So I couldn't even finish a whole painting with that. The other thing is you're putting more pressure. And so you can get a cool technique with it, but you can't get as soft a blending as I can with OMS and a paintbrush. With OMS, I have control of how much pressure is added with that brush, how much OMS is on the paintbrush. I have so much more control and so many more, it's more versatile than the marker. The marker, you're not getting a whole lot of variation in the pressure that you're able to put, whereas with a brush I am. But try it. I mean, if it works for you, it works for you. You may be able to work that into your art. If you don't like OMS, that may be a good solution for you. But see if you can find a way, see if they're refillable. I would contact Prismacolor and see if they've got suggestions for you, because oh my gosh, do they dry up quickly. Like at least the way that I blend, I'm working on one background, the marker's dead by the time I finish the background. So Tammy said, will do, should I post my results in the group? Please do. Yeah, I would love to see the results you get there. Okay, so we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Again, check out Joseph Fincham, The Art of Joseph Fincham, and Valerie. She does wood burning and watercolor. Joseph Fincham has, I know his recent one, he's done some Inktense. I think he did a acrylic too. I saw something the other day. Now I can't remember what it was. I just remember looking and going, ooh, cool. Anyway, check out their channels. The links are in the video description. They've been helping me today moderating. So, you know, you can go say thank you to them by subscribing. You're going to want to anyway. They've got cool stuff. But thanks for joining me. Next week, we'll probably, not going to promise, will probably be watercolor pencil. The Caran d'Ache ones are the ones I'm going to be using next. So again, thanks for joining me. And I will be posting updates on social media, so make sure you're following over there if you want to see how this is going as I work on it. I'll see you guys next week. Bye. And then the awkward pause. Now bye.